Hello, good morning. Thank you, Nicola, for having me here. Thank you for the BPS having me here at Nottingham. So I chose some problems that we are facing today that are really important, that they have connections, very strong connections with psychological dimensions. One of them, of course, is unemployment. And I'll show some numbers and I will keep them together. So this is the unemployment rates now until March 2018 for youth. It's going down, okay, good, but still a lot of unemployment for the rates for the EU 28 and the European area, around 17%, still a lot. And this changes quite a lot. This is for youth. But then when we go to the general unemployment rates, you see the description of the countries. And there's lots of asymmetry here, of course. Still, we have big unemployment rates, as you see in Greece, Spain, Italy, and down there. And then very good for UK, 4.1. That is still a concern. So unemployment is a big thing, a big concern of all of us and the politicians and the decision makers. So this is something because there's this estimate by the WHO that the increase in unemployment of 1% increases suicide, 0.08. So, and this instability in work has been associated with the increase of 30% for mental problems, and levels of stress in work can result in burnout, anxiety problems, and changes of humor and depression. And it's not the countries that are shown there, Greece, Italy, even Portugal, they were under crisis, and that this has had a very important consequence also for the mental health in those countries. So these are very small amount of data because of the unemployment. Let's see about mental health and well-being, poverty, and that comes also from unemployment. Is a factor of high socioeconomic risk for mental health problems such as depression and suicide, and it's also related to social exclusion and becoming marginal to society. So this is something. And the mental disorders. The mental disorders that are by far the largest contributor to chronic conditions afflicting the population of Europe. And you see there that the unipolar depressive disorder alone is responsible for 11% of all the years lived with disability, making it the leading chronic condition in Europe. This is something that should really concern us, because there's a huge dimension that is really affecting us, and we will have to deal with that. We need to be part of the solutions to this situation. There are other data that we don't need to go into now, but alcohol-related disorders also. So, 1 in every 4 European citizens are at risk of having a mental disease, and they have, of course, premature mortality and higher rates of suicide, and what is worse is like 35 to 50% of people with mental disease do not receive treatment. This is really amazing that all of these people are not receiving any kind of treatment. They don't seek, they don't go for treatment. There's still lots of explanations around this. And then we have something that is demographics, but it's important. That's the aging process in Europe also. Because we now have new threats to health, and the proportion of population age 60 of the total population is really increasing, as you can see from those. And it's growing really up, and it has lots of connections with other problems, not just physical problems, mental health problems. So it's just something that we see that is a huge amount of problems coming at us, and we should do something to be part of that solution. So this is the changing trend in the world. You see that the world is getting older and older in many areas, and this is all the red areas there in Europe, and that they affect the chronic disease today affect people more than infectious diseases, and are responsible for the greatest burden of disease in Europe. So this means that the expense of all this is huge, and probably we need more sustainable systems. That we know that the systems of health are facing really difficult problems to give access people, it's for people to access them. So it's really a big problem that is coming, and we need to be very aware of this. So the chronic diseases are the leading cause of mortality and morbidity, and we have all this. We don't need to go into that, but just to show you that, of course, psychologists know about behavior modification, all lifestyle changing, etc. We have a role in this. And in many countries already we have a role, but we still need to address these issues more and more. So, and the cost. The cost is really something. Also, the chronic diseases depress wages, earnings, workforce participation, labor productivity. There's stress at work, for example, and Europe now is very concerned about the effects of stress at work and having healthy workplaces, and has had a campaign because of that. High job turnover, disability. So this is a lot of spending. And as people grow older, of course, this increases. And this is really something that we should be also aware. And the cardiovascular disease is also a lifestyle condition. 2 million deaths every year, 192 billion euros is spent on the healthcare systems, accounting for about 10% of the total expenditure in the EU. So it's really something big. And okay, some other data. So we have lots of that, but you see, mental health is responsible for half of the absenteeism, and among unemployed, mental health is responsible for almost half of the benefits due to disability. So this is compounding really and making a case for a very difficult situation. So, and 27% of the adult population had experienced at least one of the series of mental disorders in the past year. This includes problems like anxiety, psychosis, depression, eating disorders. So there is an underestimation that 83 million people are being affected. So numbers still that are really big that we have to take in consideration. These are a little bit older data, but at that time, 2008, 2,200 years for each European home was the cost for mental health, and the depression number is that. So these are huge numbers just to get this kind of impression of what we are talking about. Another issue, migration now, a big issue in Europe, of course, still a big issue, and something that we also are working, many psychologists are working with, and we have the major receiving countries of new asylum claims. And so we have, of course, first of all, Germany, and then several European countries. It's this really big issue also that is changing the structure and probably creating different situations in different countries, and also influencing politically the situation. So this is also one of the problems. So we have unemployment, mental health issues, physical problems, aging, migration, just to have a selected few, an important one. So what can we do with this? Well, we already have an agenda for that. This means that the United Nations countries in 2015 in September signed the document that has the Sustainable Development Goals. And this means that all these countries, also by region, they have this agenda for the world until 2030. This is the agenda that is agreed upon. And they have the commitment of the countries, represented they have the UN, they have the commitment of the regions, of course, every region has its own commitments, and also national policies. So they will have, the national policies will have to reflect these commitments, and the allocation of resources and research and implementation will have to be in accordance with these SDGs. And also the activity at the local level. So it's, if we can see the connection from the big decisions taken by all these countries to the individual level. This will be the program until 2030. Everything, or most of the activities, should be related to the Sustainable Development Goals. And many countries are already evaluating this. Of course, we are very much interested in the Sustainable Development Goal number 3, where ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. But this is not just the one that really interests us. As psychology, we can have so many contributions that we can go to the end-to-end forms of poverty, hunger, food security, sustainable agriculture. These are the objectives that are related to people. Ensure inclusive and equitable equality of education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, really relates to what we do, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So even if you take just the first 5 Sustainable Development Goals, we have things to do there. What really interests us, well, the focus, of course, is number 3. And as you can see, it's important because the targets are really something that are there. By 2030, reduced by 1/3 premature mortality from non-communicable diseases through prevention and treatment, and promote mental health and well-being. And this was really the change for the United Nations, because they first, in 2015, they recognized the importance of mental health and well-being. This is complete change in the way they see things. Still, we are not, of course, it's very important that they start with that. Of course, they are very concerned about suicide mortality rate and strengthen the prevention and treatment of substance abuse. It relates very closely to what we can do. And then do the treatment interventions with psychosocial and rehabilitation. So we need to go and to address these issues, and that's what countries are trying to do. And then another thing that relates with behavior, that is road traffic accidents. So this goal 3 has lots of things that we can really address, and we can strongly contribute already doing that. So in July, 2 years after that, the high-level political forum had met, and they had already some reports. This is the UK report on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Not very encouraging, I must say, but there's still a lot of time to go. And there are lots of other reports now. You can see the Norway and Portuguese reports of what have we been doing since the 2015 planning, especially, and trying to address policies that really cover all these issues and really have an implication for the citizen, because this is not something that just happens up there. It's something that should be very important for all the policies and all the research and all where the money goes. So it is really important that all the countries are putting out their reports and doing something with this. So, but then, changing a little bit, we have many possibilities. If you go on, this is Internet Live Stats. This is like an hour ago. You can just do that. And an hour ago, you can check everything that is happening, see how many Internet users are there, emails sent, blogs, tweets, Google searches. It's an immense world that we need also to use for our purposes, for our dissemination, for our influence. And it's amazing how these numbers grow up as you can see there, because if you click there, you can stay there for a while and see how this grows. And it's really impressive how we can have this at our hands, you know, but we need to use that. And so also I would like to, there is this question of policy also from the high-level group on maximizing the impact of EU research and innovation programs. And they said something that is really important to us, which is, when looking ahead to the future of Europe in a globalizing world, the contrast is striking between Europe's comparative advantage in producing knowledge and its comparative disadvantage in turning that knowledge into innovation and growth. And this is something that is a concern. And in line with what is also the Sustainable Development Goals and trying to move Europe ahead, we have this need to get rid of the notion that research and innovation is not relevant to society. And we need to shape our future together. We need to imagine, invent, and create. So we need research, what they call labs, innovation, competitive fabrication, fabs, and applications for the benefit of all, HAPs. Hence the title of our report, Lab, Fab, HAP, Investing in the Future We Want. And this is something that Europe is really seeking to go in that direction. So labs, fabs, and HAPs. And this is something that we need also to take into consideration. So they have some recommendations: prioritize research and innovation in the EU national budgets, double the budget post-2020. Already the budget for research and development is really big, but they are planning to double it, which is important, and adopt a mission-oriented, impact-focused approach to address global changes to action. So this is moving in the right direction, with all things that are becoming more and more aligned to what we want to do. And then there are some bumps in the middle, sometimes, yeah. And so some of these things happen, but I promised to speak about Brexit a little bit. And so we have issues like unemployment rates again, migration problems, manipulation of information, everything that can contribute. And I was very happy yesterday when I saw a colleague addressing this about prejudice and Brexit and these studies that are coming up, which are very, really important to understand what is happening, because this is just not, hopefully it's just one case, but it could really spread, and there are signs in Europe that this could spread and could really affect us. And affect what was a very, I think for me, a very important project of peace and prosperity. And this was the meaning of having the European Union. But of course, this happens, and this has already some, that's what we need to need. We need to understand the desire for separation and see the arguments and have some research, and it's happening. So it is really important, I think, not just for the Brexit case, but also for all the other countries that are now experiencing some doubts or stronger doubts about should we stay in or should we leave. This already has some consequences. It's like 2 weeks ago, the nurses giving up on Britain. They're already going away. It's probably affecting also the health issues. This was 2 weeks ago, something like that. But one of the good things, and Donald Tusk, the president of the European Council, said something to the president's national egoism is being an attractive alternative to integration, in writing to the different presidents of the heads of states. And really, this is a concern. This is a concern that can just endanger the process of all the Europe and what we can do with all these projects that can come and can really help solve the problems. Meanwhile, 4 days after the referendum, that's why organizations are there for. We signed EFPA, of course, and the British Psychological Society put out a statement about we will not drive the result of the referendum on the UK future relationship with the European Union will not drive us apart as psychologists. And that is really important. That is what we really want to see happening. So, what can EFPA contribute to that, and what can the BPS contribute to that? That is really something. Our mission, the mission of EFPA is to promote the development, dissemination, and application of psychology in all its forms in Europe and beyond, and to contribute to shaping a humane society in Europe and beyond on the basis of psychology expertise. And of course, I'm not going to go into studies because you're better, you know them. We have a huge amount of robust data, practices that can be of help to solve the problems of the European citizens. And what we do is we do psychology for Europe, Europe for psychology, and psychology for psychologists. These are the three trends that hopefully we are addressing. And with our work, and I see here several people from different boards and presidents of also organizations, and we want to really reinforce this movement within EFPA. We represent, as Nicola said, 37 countries with over 350,000 psychologists. We have many links with associations and specialist areas of psychology, and is a platform for collaboration, EFPA, and for joint representation and action at the European level. This is really important. This is something that we must really reinforce. Of course, we have modest resources, but we can accomplish a lot. Have been accomplishing a lot with the collaboration of many, many volunteers, like 300 volunteers that work with us, experts that offer their work, their expertise to EFPA. So we have external spheres of operation with European institutions and other international organizations, internal with our member associations like the BPS and their governments, as well as European Psychology Association. This is a case that EFPA really intervenes in, on behalf of the, no, because of the MA, they ask us to do something with their government, so we go there, we make statements, we intervene whenever it's possible, and we do this for our member associations. So we stand there with our organization, we connect with WHO, with the United Nations, International Labour Organization, OECD, so there's a place for EFPA there, as it will, of course, grow and become stronger. So, as I already said that, there's some of the European countries and we have opportunities for participation at EU policy making. This is really important, because I think that we psychologists are not there yet, because we are not really participating with other professions as we should in the making opportunities for policy-making processes. So we can make direct contact with the Commission and the Parliament, meetings with the Commission and the Parliament. They have already happened some of the times. Participation in self-organized and joint meetings in some advisory boards and public consultations. This is also something that is really important, because they happen every time. They're always happening, and really we are not there to have some participation in the public consultations by the community, by the Commission, on legislative measures that really affect us or where we have a really strong impact. So we need to be there, or other professions will be there. You know, there's no void here. It's just the other professions take whatever they can, and we need to be there to be present in Europe. So we need to know what psychologists, Europe needs to know what psychologists can offer and should learn to seek their views and contributions, just as it does with lawyers, engineers, all the different professions that go there, especially in Brussels, of course, where they go and they make their lobbying. This representation is important because the policies are made sometimes, policies and are made and decisions are taken at higher levels that they reflect on the national countries. And of course, we have opportunities to do that. So internally, we are a cooperative platform with affiliate members, associate member associations, and we have committees. This is the structure, the actual structure of the EFPA. As you see, also going back to your diagram yesterday, so it's becoming a bit complicated. But we have lots of, this means basically one thing, that the number of volunteers that we have working for us are really important, and they are really contributing to having some of the issues taken. So we have this opportunity to do these things, obtain information about Europe, work together and share knowledge, develop common standards and models for professional activity, education, research, professional ethics, influence national legislation. We have done this, and we still continue to do that, of course. And I should stress that work together and share knowledge is, for me, one of the most important things, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. We can share our experiences and see what works best in many countries, or what are the lessons learned. And this really makes very easy for the organizations to go forward with their plans or to influence their national policies. So we published a magazine, a reference right in education. There's a European Psychologist journal where there's lots of articles and very well. And then this is the linking and at the national level that we can do. We have governments, MAs, national governments, European institutions, so EFPA can really relate to this, of course, with the work and the input of all the members. And then we have the Europe side. A project is a European certification system for psychologists, defines and guarantees the qualifications of registered members of the psychological profession, covers the profession as a whole, and thereby helps to maintain psychology integrity and identity, and applies to all of Europe. So, and we have, as we know, 750 psychology programs at least in Europe, and we need to know what is happening. So this was a major reason to develop EuropePsy. There's common standards for content, quality, and mobility, and it is a process of to overcome the discrepancy between a huge diversity in content of education. It was felt necessary, and also we want to increase mobility of citizens in the European Union, professions, and make standards for the recognition of qualifications indispensable. This is not a license to practice, but it's a facilitator. So that is really important. So it's issued to individual psychology in Europe, and there are three basic certificates in 3 areas of practice, and specialist certificates in psychotherapy and work and organizational psychology. There's a registry, and they are issued since 2010. So there's this register, there's a site where people can go and check which people are registered in that country, and so there's all the possibilities to check if a person has or not the EuropePsy. So this, as I said, is not a license to practice, but is also compatible with European directives, and it means to facilitate the evaluation of migrant psychologist applications by competent authorities. And this is an important issue in Europe that now everyone is moving around. So we have different countries with all these EuropePsy, not all of them, but all of these have already EuropePsys, and we have, of course, lots of possibilities now for many other countries, also the UK, to attribute more of these EuropePsys. So the current priorities of EFPA are organize ourselves better and become more professional activities at European level. This is also a challenge for any structure. Improve our publicity and communication, and manage the portfolios of contacts with the European Commission and European Parliament in these areas like health, employment, education, transportation, internet, whatever. And build relations with the European Economic and Social Committee and the Council of Europe and the WHO Europe, which it's an organization that we have been having many contacts. Also, the involvement with national associations and European activities, the European semester, which now is organized by our colleagues of the BPS, a very important process, and I will tell a little more about that, and I already said that. So what we want to expect, there are lots of regions in the world, so we are a region that has its own agenda, its own impact model, and we go to, that was some of the sessions of psychology in different organizations in European Union. And we also collaborate with others like EUPSIS and IAEP and different organizations, federations that we can connect with. And also at the United Nations, we are a member corresponding with the United Nations Committee for Social Issues. So we have lots of information that comes. We have consultative status also for the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. Well, that was the magazine. Going back to that, so we can really be at the center of addressing some of these issues and spreading just the news, and also participating in the decision-making process. And this is really important because this will be the agenda really for until 2030. This is what is supposed to impact the life of everyone of us in Europe. And the European Semester for Psychologists. This was a great idea of Robert Rowe, and that we had opportunity each country to host a European semester. That's what is happening now here. And so these countries already are doing this. The next one will be Cyprus. And there are lots of activities during the European semester. And I must say that I've seen them all. And now I know more about our European colleagues. Now I know more what is happening with psychology in their countries, what are their struggles, what are their solutions. And this is really important. I think this is at the core of our sharing and advancement of our strategies. So it's really important that we know what is happening and know other people at all levels, academic, political, strategic, at all levels we can do this work. And this has been, and I hope it will continue for a long time, as a way of exchanging experiences and moving psychology. And then we have our Congress, the 60th Congress. Next one will be in Moscow, Russia, and will be about psychology creating the future together. It's an important Congress, it's our Congress, and I hope you can attend and will probably attend. There will be 32 topics with different tracks, and you can get your information at the stand out there with our colleague from Russia, Hannah. And this is a really important thing because it's an opportunity to also meet with all other colleagues from different parts of the world, exchange more, and see also the work that is going around in EFPA, inside EFPA, because all the groups, all the boards, most of them are there to show what they have been addressing and what they can contribute. And it's really an important moment for us and for, I think, psychology in Europe. As I said, the European semester was something that is good, and I'm very grateful to our British members to organize that. I'm taking some of the slides from Nicola. I hope you don't mind. And this has lots of events, so this is quite good because it helps us all with our groups to connect and to discover other things. And this is the BPS focus. But I would like to take out of that one of the things that really, for me, it's very, very important. You know this. It's the public part and the general public. I think we need to do a lot of that. Education of the public and digital communication like you do. We can learn a lot with you about this. Public engagement, that's really important for our profession. Sometimes when we go to these meetings, as I always say, we go to meet these politicians they really don't know. It's very sad that they're still very not knowledgeable about psychology. You have to explain everything from the beginning. And there's lots of strange ideas of what psychologists can do or what they do, what the different ways they can intervene. And they always have this thing that psychology is all clinical psychology. It's just not more than that sometimes. So we have to, change this. It takes time. It takes time and it needs organization. It needs, of course, many of us doing this during all the days. So I think this public engagement is something that is really so big here that is one of the great contributions, not to diminish the other ones, but this one is something that really appeals with your way of doing the engagement of the people and learning. Of course, different organizations in our federation, they have different means. So, of course, they have to adapt to the means that they have. But there's still very good, important things that are coming out of that. And now I would like to change a little bit for something that I would have not just so political, we'll go to the end to that, but to the trends for 2018. I always go around, see what's happening, and I see sometimes that other people are developing stuff that are of interest for us or should have psychologists there. And I always try to see what is happening. And this guy publishes this non-obvious why the new trends for 2018. He's been publishing this, Rohit Bhargava, says something about new trends. And I found two of them that I think are very useful and that relate to what we do. And this is probably something that we need to address, the future. The future of what is manipulated outrage. And it really goes to the center of what is happening in Europe. And he says that this is a trend, we have to address this. Outrage is, the impact of all of this business focus on outrage is that it creates an atmosphere where many people start to feel a social pressure to live up to their new moral duty to remain outraged at all times. Outrage has become a part of who we are. And this is really something that we've seen everywhere building up, very fueled up by many, many things. And this we need to address, and this is something that psychologists can help, of course. And he suggests something that I think it's really important. It's like this business model of outrage is like they want to have attention-grabbing clicks and views, just like that, and it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. Just want you to click and grab and do this stuff, and spread whatever comes and very strange things. And you know about this because you experienced that also a lot. And many countries are experiencing this, and this is a big concern. It changes lots of things. It changes politics. It changes the decisions, how decisions are made. And so one of the things I suggest, and I think that it's important, is to engage the manipulators, okay? So instead of banning them from speaking and offering them the moral high ground to complain about their voices being stifled, we can each engage with their arguments and force them to defend that point of view through logic and reality. And in most cases, that is where the outrage breaks down. It is harder to be manipulated once we dig beyond the sensational headlines. And this is something I think that is a trend that he identifies as a trend to 2018. And this guy gets really important insights he goes around seeing what's happening, and he really has insights about what will be a concern to the world. And I think this is something that we, of course, need very much to take to do our part. It's really important for the future of Europe in many ways. The other thing is about virtual empathy, something that we are not used to. Of course, we're speaking about empathy all the time, but virtual empathy is a new trend also. It's very interesting and very important. It's where when you have virtual reality comes from the experience of fully replacing the world around with that of a character, but the power of augmented reality comes from the ability to offer context for the world around you while letting you continue to be. And so it's interesting how we can now, with the technology, provide this. There are lots of vloggers, YouTube channels, other content that show what is happening from the standpoint of that person. And now virtual reality is even exploring that. This is from like 2 days ago. Virtual reality lets adults see neglect and abuse through a child's eye. And this really is interesting because it's a new way of addressing and decentering people and making them see what is happening from that point of view. And these developments are useful and they are important for us. And I think that it really has some future there for us to participate. Unfortunately, and I've met some of these people around, many of the times these are done by engineers and other stuff, but not really by psychologists, which is very unfortunate. So we need to be addressing all of this. And then, so empathy leads so that we can have understanding, which is the key to solving problems, create powerful workplace cultures, and being more innovative. This can have many applications. So 2 trends that I think they are really interesting for us. And just for some challenge and some disturbing, probably or not challenge for us, meet the robot Vera. I don't know if you are familiar with her. She's now, this is a Russian project, and she speaks. I don't have and so what does she do now? She is an artificial intelligence robot that interviews 1,500 job candidates in a single workday, and sorts the candidates. And already 200 companies are already using this, big companies. It speaks English and Russian at different speeds, can sound like a man or a woman. It's engaged in mass recruitment for blue-collar jobs, and the most promising candidates are passed to human recruiters and not used at this moment for executive hires, and can dialogue with 10,000 candidates simultaneously regardless of time zones and geography. And this is not the future, this is happening now. Okay, so this is just to give you a flavor of what is really happening now and can change parts of our profession or entirely some of the parts of our profession. And if you go online, if you search her, you can have even an interview with her for an example. It will see that she even says and moves like that and all. That's very similar to an interview, and there are lots of information now of what we are going into that direction with artificial intelligence. This is something also that we need to be aware. Okay, coming to the end. At political level, what we need to do, coming back to my term, just to coming back to what we need to do. We need to really communicate intensely with decision makers at various levels, and this is what EFPA does, of course, and this is what member associations do Of course, we do that at national level, European levels. There's important news about cost effectiveness. Politicians are really interested in cost effectiveness. Money, there's limited resources, so they need to know about this. And most of our research about that is quite good. And it's quite favorable to the psychological intervention, but they don't know about it. And so also we are doing at this moment a white paper on cost effectiveness of interventions in EFPA with the collaboration of our Turkish colleagues. So we have the possibility to do all of this work and then to disseminate it and go to the places, and we plan to do that more strongly in the future. To be aware of the new technology, internet, e-health, we have a group also that does this internally in EFPA. And do speak and speak. I think this is one of favorite of mine. Still a lot of problems to solve with there about prevention and early intervention. It's still something that we keep speaking, but when it comes to the budgets of the governments, it's just really marginal or almost inexistent. So, and we can develop and talk about what is happening around with the best practices that already exist for groups, organizational, community interventions. This has to be at the center of our concerns. And it's possible, if it's possible, presence in the media, continuous presence, programs that disseminate psychological knowledge, work with the media producer, educate them about our science and perfection. There's no use in complaining about they don't portray us very well, because we need to educate these people about what they should say about our science and profession. There's lots of work to be done there. Okay, and then I think important, and it comes from all this, that we need to align our strategy with the political agenda. It's the only way we can really have some influence. Otherwise, they will just ignore us, because that's not in their priorities, that's not in their budgets. So we really need to be very attentive to the political agenda and see from what is happening there. And you've seen that from the Sustainable Development Goals to the report of the European Commission. Things are moving, and we need to be partners in this situation. But we need to know the political agenda. That's also what EFPA does, to be very attentive to the political agenda, and then try to involve all the member associations, our experts, in giving us important inputs to get to the political agenda. So that's my final message, really, because this is so important for all of us. But and then, of course, not just about that, but we have still many opportunities to affirm psychology in the European space to benefit the citizens. We need a joint effort of the countries to do this affirmation. I think EFPA is the ideal place to do that. BPS is a major contributor to EFPA in many ways, because of your history, of all your knowledge and expertise. But I think that also favors us in many ways. But we can learn, we can exchange ideas. It's really, really important. So let's do our journey together. Thank you very much.